So Gavin, a lot of people talk about seeing that song and seeing Bowie for the first time on Top of the Pops, and it seems to have coincided with Top of the Pops and BBC being broadcast in colour for the first time. So how important was that, do you think?
Well, it was strange because Top of the Pops became a big thing for me as a kid, because pop music became this best friend in a weird way. The first sort of band I loved was Mark Bolan and T-Rex, and that was around 1971. And it was the only, I don't know, it was probably the first time I started feeling I had some identity of my own, away from my dad and the school I went to, and my brothers were all into football and whatever. And something connected with me with music. And you're only 11 and you don't feel you fit in. And then glam rock came along and I felt I fit in. And it was all the glam bands like Sweet and Slade. But when this happened, it was more extraordinary than Bolan. And it was like, I mean, everyone talks about the dark days of Dublin and Ireland, but it wasn't just Dublin, it was Europe was in a bad place. And it was the end of hippiedom. And we never liked hippies, I didn't relate to it, but it was the start of real trauma, like economical and oil crisis and everything. And out came out of this, you're not going to get a job, I'm going to successor a job. Out came this beacon that says, you don't have to live in Ballymun, you can come to Mars. To my head, and to see it in full colour, it was extraordinary. So I suddenly felt, even though I didn't understand what he was saying fully, that I understand him. And he had that finger. And it was so weird because it was that connection I had, which was very infantile then. It grew and it grew, as we're going to talk about. But it was that connection that sort of opened my world up in so many ways. It was the first time I met my two life-forming friends, Gogi and Bono, was because I walked down Cedarwood Road with a Bowie album. And they went, who's he with a Bowie album? And started talking to me simply because of that. So the biggest thing was, it told me there's something else out there other than the Ireland and the opportunities back then.
We've often talked about Bowie, and we've talked about Bowie being a kind of a portal, as a way out, as a way in. So where did it bring you straight away in the early 70s?
It brought me very mad places and very confused places. Because the first place, even though you don't know, I believe a lot of people see stuff, like you read a book when you're 14 and you don't really know what it means, but you have an essence of it. You see a movie or you see an image and you go, I know exactly what that is. Like around the time Bowie kicked off was 72, and I saw a film, Cabaret, with Liza Minnelli, and even though it was over 16, my godmother at the time brought me to it, and I was like, I understand everything, but I didn't understand anything. But I did understand everything, because it was basically Auden's story, Berlin Stories, I Am a Camera, and that sort of glam, that drama, and that intensity, and that outsiderism that made you feel part of it. And when Bowie started kicking in, it was like Ziggy Stardust. I bought the album and I was like 12, and you go to Starman, but then you listen to something like 5 Years, which is one of the greatest opening tracks ever in my mind. And you're having this neo-apocalyptic thing, and the melodrama suddenly became your own. And I didn't know where this came from. And you buy the next single and the next single. And it was around the time I got Sorrow, which he didn't write, but the B-side was a song by Jacques Brel, who, being honest, it was Brel and Brecht, musically for me, were far more my instincts and I'm far more, have robbed more from them than I have from Bowie. But Bowie just was this unbelievable portal. The way he dressed, what he talked about, and these were the days where you'd have an NME, Melody Maker interview, whatever. There was literally 4 or 5 magazines on hold in Call's shop. I don't know if anyone remembers Call's on Ballyman Avenue. And I'd order disc, sounds, Melody Maker. So everything was religion. And he'd mentioned something like Jean Genet. And then I says, is that the Jean Genie? It sort of was Jean Genie, but it wasn't. It seemingly, they say it was a song written about America through the eyes of Iggy Pop, playing tune to Jean Genet. Well, a 13-year-old, 14-year-old then goes into Eason's, and you know, most people read books still. You read and then maybe rob. But the Thief's Journal and Querelle, a 12-year-old opening up, a 13-year-old opening up the Thief's Journal, and it's pretty heavy. And Querelle, the breast, pretty heavy. And Bowie played with so many things. You're talking about a time when sexuality, especially male sexuality, in this country was totally like shunned upon, or even though feelings, it's like, and the interesting thing for me was, probably why I really was attracted to him, was as a kid, I was, believe it or not, very shy, and I looked like a girl, even though I don't now. I looked like a girl, and I had curly hair, and when Bowie kicked in, earrings came in, that was it. It was like a religion. But the aggression from me as what I was, my real name is Fionnán Hanvey, but in Christian Brother Dublin, Northside Dublin, I was called fuck on pansy. Serious. And I mean, bullying is a really vibrant, aware thing now, where everyone's very aware of bullying. But bullying's been going on forever, since we're all around. And wow, was I bullied. And this is before I even had pubic hair. You sort of go, I don't know who the fuck I am or what I want to be, but I was being battered. And then this sort of asexual, bisexual, trisexual thing said, come at me, come at me. So that was a huge portal, because when you don't relate to those football and male things, which I still have a problem with, by the way.
I just, I went through the same. I went through the Christian Brothers schooling education system, and the number of scripts that were available to you being a young man are so narrow and so limited. So if you didn't play a GAA, you were fucked. So that was it. Right?
Or rugby.
Or rugby. Yeah, or rugby. But you know, so if you were anyway different or anyway thinking differently, you're screwed.
Yeah.
I'm conscious when you mentioned Jean Genet, like we're at a book festival, and I know in the last couple of years Bowie gave a list of his top 100 books to the V&A, David Bowie's exhibition, and his son Duncan recently has set up a kind of a book club where people are reading through. So other than Jean Genet, I mean, did you then actively explore different things that Bowie was referring to?
Constantly. I mean, The thing is, there's a lot of musicians and performers and actors out there that have that sort of ray of light they send people. Like 10 years after Bowie, Boy George is doing the same to millions of people internationally.
Sure.
But Boy George was not telling them to check out Burroughs, to go to German Expressionism, to look at Genet.
Yeah.
This is where Bowie's extraordinary. It wasn't just his journey, it was his brain. He was a living portal. He opened our minds to so many things. And you talk about that story about his book list. I think it was only published 2-3 years ago, just before he died, and now his son has made a big thing of it. I have many stories I could tell you about David Bowie personally, because I met him over the years. And strangely enough, we sort of didn't get on, but got on, and didn't get on. And we'd argue a lot, which embarrassed people around us, but we did. And one time I went to see him in Cleveland, with Bono actually. They were on tour, U2 were on tour, and he invited Bono to, I think he was doing Tin Machine. And when he was rehearsing Tin Machine, he lived in Dublin for a couple of months, where we hung out with him a good bit. And after the show he did in Cleveland, I think they did Knocking on Heaven's Door, the Bob Dylan tune, as an encore. Afterwards he invited us back to his room in his hotel. And it fucked my head up. It was like, you walk into the room, and I have a slight OCD thing. This is beyond. It's like, he had literally a library of books, all in alphabetical order, set up. He had a library of albums, set up the deck, and you just walk in and you go, whoa, whoa. And I'm like, whoa. And he goes, what do you want to hear? Or read this? And you go, whoa. And it was quite extraordinary.
So this went on tour with him?
It seemed like it.
Yeah.
But like, he was a very, very learned man, and his attention span would go like, next, next, next. So he's quite sort of passively very aggressive. But yeah, no, did those 100 books mean a lot to me? Maybe. I've read some of them. He had a lot of interest in satanic stuff and spacey stuff, and I don't really run with that, either of them. But the portals, that the books I read because of him was Burroughs, which led me into Ginsberg, which led me into Patti Smith. It's just like, you pick up one thing and a domino thing will kick in.
What's always amazing about Bowie is that if you, and we'll see some of these images later on this evening. So you mentioned Satanism. So for example, he was probably around his cocaine and milk phase. He was very interested in the occult at one stage. So he was a big follower of Aleister Crowley. And there's a particular image of a Crowley book where Crowley is crucified. And this pops up in one of his last videos. You know, so like where he's pulling stuff from. The imagery he uses, the language he uses, like he's so learned and so, you know, like literally mining, German expressionism, Irish literature, you name it. So
it's like this. You ask me what's my favourite Bowie album cover, and it's like asking what's your favourite Bowie song, but this probably is my favourite Bowie album cover. And when you look at it, the stripe and that, like Ziggy was the first album. You go backwards then because they re-released Hunky and Menace of the World. But this, Aladdin Sane, this may sound a bit shite, but when you're 13, I joined the fan club. There's this big fan club thing. He was quite corporate in his early days, even though he didn't make money. But when you started looking at this, he was born the same day as Elvis, and Black Star has a connection with Elvis as well. Sure. But Elvis's logo was a ring. He had a ring called TBC with a zap, a lightning bolt, taking care of business. And Bowie went, I want this on my face, and seemingly it became a bigger image. But really it's supposed to be about the split schizophrenia of him.
His half-brother?
His brother, his half-brother was, who died in a mental home. And he had that fear of being mad.
A long thread through his work. And this is an interesting image because Duffy, photographer, talks about the tear being his idea. Like he's claiming that the star, the flash came from his electric, rice cooker, wasn't it?
A rice cooker, yeah.
Yeah. So lots of stories about it.
But to me, this and this image, like here you go, you're 12, you don't even know what a Mickey is, and he's not. So it's very erotic if you're 12 or 13. But somebody called this, I think it was Duffy, Aladdin's saying is the Mona Lisa of all rock covers. And it sort of is. There's no one solo face as movers like that.
And why is this, other than the cover, why is that your favourite album?
It's not my favourite album. It's my favourite. I'd say maybe Low, Young Americans, and Black Star. It goes into that.
Okay. And probably depends
but
on...
this, I don't know. It's not. Well, the only bad track is the Rolling Stones track. Do you know the maddest thing is, you know, he was jamming with the Stones then. He was such a fan.
Yeah.
He was. Everyone calls him a vulture and a bit of a chameleon.
Yeah.
But you know, Diamond Dogs is basically the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
Goes punk.
Yeah, and I think this chameleon thing is overdone anyway by both. Like it's a bit cliched.
Correct. I think every singer, every performer with any drive is a chameleon. And we all steal, we all beg, steal, borrow. But it's how you wear the suit yourself and how you present it. I mean, it's just, I think because he was the first that blatantly, visually did it. And because he changed so rapidly, within 5 years, he did rock and roll, soul, avant-garde. It's just like, so quickly he